Hello and welcome. In this lecture we will start making our game by first creating our player character movement script. So first thing we will do is import our character sprite sheet. So in the assets folder I will create a new folder called sprites. We will keep our characters, enemies and environment assets in this folder. And now I will import a new asset, and I will import this character sprite sheet that we have created for you. You can see we have all of these sprites, in all the animations in one image. This is called a sprite sheet. But currently, if we created a new 2D object, a new sprite, and let's call it player. If we just added this sprite onto the image, we would see, I'll just scale it, we would see all of these animations at the same, like displayed. But we don't want that. We want them to be somehow sliced. You could import all of these images as a separate image, but you shouldn't do that. You should have all your sprites on one sprite sheet, because Unity makes this really easy for us. If I now click on the sprite here and go into the inspector tab, we have the sprite mode. Currently it is set to single. If I change it to multiple and then select the sprite editor and apply this, now we can see we have our sprites here. You see we have some attack animations. We remade this guy to look like Link from the first Legend of Zelda. As you can see, he has only 2 animations for each direction, because, well, when they made games back in the day, they didn't have too much memory to work with, so they had to be smart about animations. Anyway, if we open the sprite editor and click slice and just slice these sprites, you can see Unity manually for us just slices them. Now if I apply and close this, you can now see that every sprite here has been separated, and now our player is one sprite. So let me just choose, okay, I will choose this 7th sprite and add it here, so we can just see our player. We won't be animating him today, we'll just move him around the map. We'll cover animation in a different video. So back in our assets browser, I will create a new folder, call it scripts, and open it. And now I will create a new C# script, call it player, and open that as well. To move our player, we need some kind of speed variable. So let's create a public float speed. We say public because if we declare a public variable, let me show you. Now if I attach the script to the player, we can change the value from the inspector. We don't have to go back into the script. This is much easier and more convenient when working with games. Well, so we have a speed variable. We could cover the movement in the update function, but I want to create a new method so we keep things clean and easily to read. So let's call this method movement, and we will just in our update method say call movement each frame. Here in movement, I'm going to say we're going to check for key presses. So if input.getKey is key code is W. So now we check if W is pressed. We're going to transform dot translate, and this just means transform translate. Translate means we take this transform, so it has an X, Y, and Z value, and well, we add some values to it. So this method takes 3 parameters, so an X and a Y and a Z. Since we're pressing W, we're going to be moving up. That's the Y-axis. So on the X-axis we're going to say 0, and on the Y we're going to say speed times time dot delta time. This will just make sure that the game runs the same on every machine. I'll just get to this and Z 0. Whoops, speed times dot delta time, not end. So time dot delta time is basically a small number. it is the time from the last frame. So if your game on your if the game on your computer runs at 60 frames per second, and on mine at 30 frames per second, it would be a, well, different number. And if we'd use this, we basically cover for frame rate issues and drops. The game will run the same for all users. Okay, let's set a speed value to 5 here and check if we can move our guy. So if I press W, my guy walks up. Great. Let's continue and add input for all directions. So if input get key is key code S down, I'm going to transform translate. Again, we are moving down, so it's again the Y axis. So this time we're going to multiply by minus speed by time dot delta time, and for the Z it's 0. If input get key code A, this is left, so let's say transform dot translate. So we're moving on the x-axis now, and left of the x-axis is minus, so we're going to say minus speed times time dot delta time, y is 0 and z is 0. Let's close the brackets. And if input dot get key code D, this is right, transform dot translate, whoops, the speed times time dot delta time 0 0. Now if I save this and go back into Unity, if I click play, I can move my guy in all directions. But here's something to notice. If you look at this, I can move diagonally. Back in the day, in Legend of Zelda, the first one, you could just move like in one direction. If you want your game to have that, you just go to the script and instead of if, just say else if. This will basically only execute one of these. So if I save this, oh no, it's, you can say else if here. So if I save this, go back into Unity, if I click play, I now can't walk diagonally, I can just walk in one direction, which really feels like a Zelda game, but it also feels weird because in your games you have a ton of freedom, but you can choose whichever method suits you best. You can use this one or the previous one, but I will just keep this one through this tutorial since we're, well, rebuilding a Zelda game. So thank you for watching, and in the next one we will start animating our player. So see you then. Hello and welcome. Last time we created a movement script for our character and we added the sprite sheet. So let's create animations in this lecture. I will create a folder which I will call animations. We will store our animations in here. Let's click on the window tab and open the animation. I will put this next to the console so we have a nice view. Now if I click on the player, we will be able to animate this object. Now if you click on create animation, let's navigate to the animations folder. I will call this animation maybe walking down. Let's first create the walking down animation. Back in our sprites folder, I will look for my walking down sprites. So we have 2, 7 and 8. I will drag them in here. You can see we have a timeline here. If you play this animation, it looks really bad. It's kind of too quick, so let's tweak it a bit. Let's put the second sprite on 15 seconds and copy it and put it again on maybe 25, and let's see how that looks. And well, and that is a better looking walking animation. We could also change the samples from 60 to 30. Now let's leave them at 60 so the animation is faster. Okay, now then that this is done, if we click on walking down here, we can create a new clip. So let's create a new animation for walking up, and let's find our walking up sprites. Here they are. Let's add the first one and then the second one. Again, let's put him on 15 seconds. Whoops, then copy and paste him. Then copy and paste him. I'm having some issues here. Okay, I will drag him again and put them on 25 seconds. Play. And we have a nice looking walking up animation. Create a new clip. Let's say walking right. Let's find our walking right. Here they are. So let's put this guy here and this one to 15 seconds. It's weird. And 25. Now if we play, looks nice. And for our final animation, going to be walking left. So here we have the 5th and the 6th right. Let's add the 5th one, then the 6th at 15 and at 25. You don't have to use the same timeline as I did. You can create your animation however you wish. Okay, I like how this is looking. So now we can close this now. If we go into our animations folder, we can see we have this animation controller player here and 4 of these animations. If we open this animator, we can see that our animations are here and they're waiting to be set up. So now we should be, if I play the game, the walking down animation plays by default. As you can see on the animator, only it is connected and only this animation plays. So in the next lecture we will plug in all animations and we'll create the animator, so when you walk right, the right animation plays and things like that. So thank you for watching and see you in the next lecture. Hello and welcome. Last time we created our player animations. So if we now play, we can see that the player is only playing the walking down animation. It doesn't matter in which direction we go. That's because we haven't set up his animator yet. So if we click on the player on our inspector, we can see that he has the animator attached to him. And if we open our animator, if you don't have this tab, just go to Window and select Animator. We can see that walking down is played from the entry, so whatever happens, walking down will be played. We want to change these things, of course. Let's reorganize everything. So if you hold Alt and left click, you can drag your mouse here and move around in the animator. I will just drag these animations and kind of have them to make sense. So walking up, it will be up, walking down will be down, left will be left, and right will be right. So now if we right click, we can make a transition from walking up to any of these other animations. That's what we want to do. So basically, if you're walking up and if you press down, you want to be able to go to any of these animations. Now, how transitions work is some type of condition has to be met in order to transition from one animation to another. So basically, if we go into parameters, we can add a new parameter. It could be a bool, a trigger, a int, or a float. I will add an integer and I will call it something like dir as in direction. And now I can say we can kind of like map directions to numbers. So think of walking up to be 0, walking left 1, walking right 2, and walking down 3. So whenever the direction is one of those numbers, we will play one of those corresponding animations. So let's say let's say that walking up is 0, and from walking down we make a transition to walking up, and then we click on this arrow here and go to conditions, and we're going to say direction is equals 0. So when direction is 0, we will transition from walking down to walking up. Let's create that transition for all of these, from walking right to walking up. Let's add the condition direction is equal to 0. Walking left, direction is equal to 0. Okay. Also, a thing that we need to do is you can see that these transitions have some kind of exit times and these durations here. That basically means that you see how it will transition. For example, from walking right to walking up, if we play, walking right will still be played for a few moments and then walking up will play. We don't want that. In 2D games that looks really bad, so we're going to disable has exit time and fixed duration, set this to 0. Do that for all of these transitions. Set them to 0. Disable everything. So we have transitions for walking up. Let's create them for others. So let's say that walking down is 1. The value of direction for 1. Let's disable these exit times and set the condition direction equals 1. Oops, not 41 but 1. Create a transition from walking right. Disable exit times. Direction equals 1. Walking left. Disable everything. Direction equals 1. We have transitions for walking down. Okay. Let's do them for walking left. Let's say that left is 2. Disable all of these. Direction is equal to 2. Make a transition from walking down. Disable all of these transitions. Direction equals 2. And from walking right, disable the exit times. Direction equals 2. I think we have everything. Okay. Now we have to cover walking right transition. So from walking up to walking right, let's disable the and set direction to 3. So from walking down to walking right, disable exit times. Condition direction equals 3. And from walking left transition, disable exit times. Direction equals 3. Okay. Now this will still not work, but we're on the right track. And now if we go into our player and open up our script, we need to create a reference to our animator so we can somehow control it. So I'm going to say animator and call this anim. You can call it whatever you want. I'll just call it anim. So in the start method, when the game starts, we want to get a reference to our animator. So we'll say anim equals get component animator. Okay. And now, when we press a button, for example, when we press W, we want to play the up animation. So we're going to say anim set integer. This sets a integer, and our integer that we want to set is direction. So let's say dir, and the value is 0 for up. For down, we will say anim set integer, again direction, and the value is 1, I believe. For left, the value is 2, so anim dot set integer direction 2. And for right, it's 3. Anim set integer direction and 3. Okay, so now if we save this, if you go back into Unity, we got some messages here. Ignore those, nothing special. So if you play now, you can see if I hold left, I'm going left. I hold down, it's working properly. The animation transition instantly. But there's a little problem here. If I stop walking, my character still animates. That's because we never stop the animation. We can stop the animation really easily. If we look at our animator, we have this speed value for all of these animations. So we can basically set the speed value to be 0 when we're not pressing any buttons. So we have all of these if statements here. I'm going to say else if none of the sorry, if no key is being pressed, I want to just anim speed equals 0. This just sets the speed of all of the animator of all the animations to 0. So basically no animations will play. But we do have to set it to 1 in here. Let me show you. So now if we, let's just save and go back here. You see, we never reset the value of the animator, so it just sets the animation speed to 0, and we never set it to 1, so our animations don't play. Just go back into our script, and each time we set the integer and we move the player, just say anim.speed equals 1, and I can copy this and paste it here. Now if I save and go back into Unity, click play, my guy animates properly. And if I stop walking, he will also stop. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial, and see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome. So last time we created a player animator. If we run our game, our player is alive and running in our world. And in this lecture I want to create a health system, so we have hearts in the top left corner that represent our health. That's going to be really simple. So let's get started. I'll navigate to our sprites folder and import a new asset. Import this heart PNG. As you can see, this heart PNG has two sprites, a full heart and half a heart. In this game I'm only going to be using the full heart. You can use the half heart if you wish in your game. So let's go to the sprite mode and select multiple, then apply. And in the sprite editor we need to slice our sprites and apply that change as well. So now we have them separated. In order to display images in the top left corner all the time, we need to create a user interface. So let's right click and create UI image. Now we have this blank image here, and we have a canvas. If we go to the scene view, we can see that the game is, see where our character is right here in the camera, but the canvas is like the screen, the viewport of the users. So this image will always be in the center no matter which resolution you have. So let's call this heart, and let's import our heart 0 here. This is too big, so I'm going to resize it, scale it down to 0.2 on X and Y. And also it's on the middle, but we want it to be in the top left corner. This can be easily done by clicking on this anchor presets and choosing the top left one. Now we need to reset the X and the Y position. And now as you can see, our heart is on the top left corner of the canvas. Now we just set the X to maybe 20 and Y to -20, and that's looking really good. There are a few ways we can go about creating this health system, but I found that this is a really easy one and works really well. So let's just duplicate this heart and call this heart a heart 2. Basically what I'm going to do is, oops, set this to 45. I'm going to, since I'm making this game, and in my game I want to have a limited health for my player. So if you've played Legend of Zelda games, you know that you start with 3 health, and as you progress you get an increase in your maximum health, and by the end of the game you have like 12 health and things like that. So I'm going to have in my game a maximum of 5 health. So let's duplicate these hearts, just change their X position so they are visible, 17, and create heart 4,
oops, maybe 90, no, 95, and another heart, call this heart 5, put it to 120 maybe, yes, perfect. Now I'm going to disable all of these hearts, just going to select them and disable them, and later through a player script we're going to be enabling them. So let's open up our player, and since we're now working with UI, we need to import that. So type in using Unity engine.ui, and now we can get a reference to images. So we can say public image, and we want an array of images and call that array hearts. Basically an array, if we go back into Unity now and click on our player, we now have this hearts and the size is 0. But if I lock this inspector tab and select all my hearts, I'm going to populate this array with these hearts. So you can see we have all of these hearts here. Okay, let's continue. We now also need some values for our health, so let's create a public int max health, and we need a int current health. The difference between max health and current health is, well, maybe your max health is going to be 5, but if you take damage, your current health will be decreasing. In our start method, we will say current health is equal to max health. When the game starts, we set that the current health to the maximum health. So we need a method that will loop through this array of images and compare our health, our current health, and see, well, okay, if we have 2 health, we need to draw 2 hearts. So let's create another method for that. Let's call it void get health maybe. And this can be easily done with a for loop. So say for int I is equal to 0, I less than or equal to current health, and I plus plus. If you're not familiar with a for loop, well, basically this is the beginning, so I is going to start from 0, and this for loop will execute code that is found here until I is less than or equal to current health, and each time it finishes executing the code, it will start over, but this time I is going to be increased. So now we're going to say hearts I game object set active true. So this means that we're taking a object that is the position of I in the array and setting it to active. So when the first time this executes, we're going to set the first object in the array, since I is 0, and set it to true, and then the second time, and until this condition is met. But we have a problem here still, so if I go back to Unity, click on my player, and if I set max health to 2, and call this get health function method in our start method, you will see that I will have drawn 3 hearts when I start the game. You see we have 3 hearts even though our max health is 2. Well, that's because of how for loops work. So I is going to be 0, and then we're going to create a heart, then I is going to be 1, and we're going to create a heart, so that's 2 hearts. And then the last time I is going to be 2, and that's the last time it will execute because this condition will be met, and we're going to create a heart. So we created 3 hearts. That's because I starts from 0. This is easily fixed by saying current health -1. Now if we go back to Unity and play, we can see our hearts, we have 2 hearts now. Okay, so let's continue. Right now I will simulate kind of taking damage, since we don't have any way of taking damage currently, no enemies, nothing. So I'm gonna say if input.getKey down, key code, let's say when I press P I want to take damage, I'm gonna say current health -. Minus basically means we subtract 1 from current health. And I'm also going to call get health in the update method. You will see now we have a problem with this, because if I click P, I still have 2 hearts. Now I'm mashing the P button like crazy and I still have 2 hearts. Well, that's because this get health method, it loops through the array and just activates the game objects. We never deactivate them. So we first have to loop through the entire array and disable all of them, and then look to see how much health we have, so we can enable some of them. So let's say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than or equal to hearts.length. This gets the length of the array, and don't forget to say -1 because we're starting from 0, and I plus plus. And in here we want to say hearts of I game object set active false. So now each time we take damage, we're going to disable all the hearts and then re-enable them depending of our current health. So now if we save, go back into Unity, if I click P, I lose a heart, and if I click B, I lose another, and we're not dead because we haven't implemented that logic. But let's see if I were to implement kind of health regeneration. So input get key down, key code maybe L. I'm gonna say current health, whoops, current health plus plus. So let's see how this works. So I press L, I get a heart. I press P, I lose a heart. And our health system works. I will remove this because we used it for testing purposes. Since we now know that it works, I will remove it. And that will be it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and see you in a different lecture.
Hello and welcome. So last time we created a health system. If I run the game, we can see that I have 2 health. But there's something wrong with how this is set up. If we go back in our code, and you can see that I've added back again this script, these 2 lines of code that will subtract and give me health. And the problem with how this is set up is, if I press L, I'm going to gain a heart, so I have 3 hearts, and if I press L again, I'm going to have 4 and 5. And you can see that now if I drop down this canvas, all our hearts are created, but I can still press L to add a heart. Now we can see that we get an error saying that our array index is out of range, and I can still add a lot of health to my character, but we don't get a visual representation for that. And I can also take away health, where you see we're not losing any hearts. That's because our index is out of range. Now if I mash P, and we're losing hearts just now. So we're going to fix that. We can fix that easily by just checking if, oops, so let's say if current health is greater than max health. So this should never happen, but if sometimes by some kind of, I don't know, problem in our code or something happens that shouldn't happen and current health is somehow greater than max health, if that happens, we're just going to set current health to be equal to max health again. There we go, a easy fix. Now if I go back to Unity and click play, let me just clear this. Now if I click L to add health, oh yeah, now I can't add health because my maximum health is 2 actually. So let's restart and set it to 5, so I can show you that it works perfectly fine. Now we have full hearts. I can take away all hearts, and if I mash L, I can't get more health, and we are not getting any error. So that's an easy fix there. Let me just restart max health to 2. So yeah, for those of you who figured it out on the quiz, good job. For those of you who didn't, don't worry, we're here to learn. Thank you for watching, and see you in a later lecture.